will the Iran war, Iran conflict, have a negative effect on the housing market? And how will it affect the housing market? Are the effects that we're feeling already long-term, short-term? And what are the effects? What's the impact of the housing market right now? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. How the heck are you guys? I'm Jen Sylvester, coming to you live from Massachusetts on the Northeast. And yeah, we were buried under 30 inches of snow 2 weeks ago. Hard to believe it's almost gone. We've had a couple days in the 60s. Whoop, whoop. I'm going to give actually a little cheer on that because I'm so happy about it. Oh my goodness, spring cannot come fast enough. But we're digging into this. This is, I went through, as I always do every week, go into, dig into the data. No political commentary, nothing done emotional, no emotional comments, opinionated comments, although I will give you my opinion, but based on data. Data, it will tell you the true story. Data doesn't lie. So we're going to have a conversation, and hopefully you'll have a better understanding on what the heck's going on, help you gauge what, if it affects your timeline, if you're thinking about making a move this spring, and actually that hits the poll tonight. I want to know, does the warning of the rising mortgage rates, falling in prices impact your decision to move this year? Because that is what's happening. And interest rates are going up, inventory is going up, prices are coming down. Does it change anything? Because I always say, and those that you guys that watch my commentary and videos know that the metric that most everyone, not talking investors, most homeowners, when it's your personal home, the metric you look at when you move is a good time for you. Look, you're timing the market. This is not a Wall Street decision. It's a personal decision. So it'll be interesting. So jump in the poll. Let me know what you think. Who we got? Let me see who we got in the house here. Joining us on this fun adventure. We got, let's see here. Let's see, Paul. Let's see. Okay. I'm gonna bypass Paul's comment. Every 3 months I predict a housing crash. I pretty much have not done that at all. I have not, or maybe you're talking about other articles, because that is not me, for sure. We got Leslie in the house from New Mexico. Very nice. Yeah, we got Kimberly in the house. Hello. 80 degrees today in central PA. The weather's just bonkers. Leslie asks, what are your thoughts on buying a house with spray foam insulation? Read horror stories. Interesting. You know what? I'm going to put a pin in that and get back to that. I'll give you my commentary in a bit on that for sure, because I want to get into this article. We got Angie Madcat in the house. Good to see you. We got Tracy in the house. I'm glad you're here. Glad you guys are all here. And I'm excited to dig into this commentary because, it is, there's never a dull moment. In the housing market, there's never a dull moment. And this is no exception. So I'm going to jump right in, and we're going to get things rocking and rolling here and talk about what's happening. So this article, this is Realtor.com, came out yesterday, talking about stagflation. Now, I talked about stagflation months and months ago, and it's starting to rear its ugly head. Stagnation fears threaten spring housing market as oil hits $100 a barrel. Well, what does oil have to do with the housing market? Stay tuned. We're going to get to it. This is the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran, which... To make this correct, technically, we're not at war. It's a conflict. I digress. Threatens to derail the crucial spring housing market as oil prices soar, raising the specter of stagflation and rising mortgage rates. On Monday, yesterday as the war entered its 10th day with the path of resolution uncertain. West Texas Intermediate crude hit $100 a barrel. It marked a key level not seen since summer 2022 when spiraling inflation hit a 40-year high. I'm gonna show you some graphics on that in a second. It says gas prices have already jumped. The U.S. national average price for regular grade hitting $3.48 a gallon on Monday, up 16% from last week, according to AAA. Oil prices also have ripple effects on prices throughout the economy, from airline fares to groceries, as companies grapple with higher fuel and transportation costs. This graphic goes over to oil prices surge as Iran war disrupts supply. I actually have a better graphic on that. This is actually, going back to as early as 2012. And when they say that the oil prices have soared, we've got, this is back in 2014. It was $106 a barrel. And then we've got 2022, which is what they're referring to, 108. And that's, this graphic does not get past February 20th, but I wanted to show it to you as far as history. The other graphic I wanted to show you is gas prices. I had a little fun, actually. This is kind of, depending on where you're at. I'm in the Northeast, so $3.39. Guys, move to Massachusetts, you get a discount on your gas, I guess. But sorry to say, Angie Madcat, California, average $5.27 a gallon. Eek. It's interesting. Interesting how these gas prices vary across the country. This is Gas Buddy. This is up to date regionally, day by day. And the big thing that the reason why they're bringing this up is because this impacts the economy. The economy impacts inflation, investor activity. Investor activity affects mortgage rates. It's all connected, folks. It's the thing my doctor says when my neck hurts. It might be connected to my back. It might be connected to my hips. It might be connected to my shoulder. Everything is connected. and it does impact, everything impacts, in some way, shape, or form. The bottom line is anything that impacts consumer confidence, affordability, in the state of the economy is going to impact all the things that intertwine in the housing market. This is why this is important to watch. It says for the housing market, the oil shock comes from at the onset of the spring housing season, the most active time of the year for home buyers and sellers. In addition to the potential blow to consumer confidence, sounds like somebody's listening to me here. The crisis threatens to send mortgage rates surging. Threatens to send rates surging as bond markets react to inflation risk. Jake Krimmel, who says a senior economist of Realtor.com, he says, this is the second time in as many years that we have seen a panic and uncertainty injected into global financial and commodities markets. He says, although a tariff-driven recession never came to bear last year, economic uncertainty combined with upward pressure on interest rates was enough to short-circuit 2025's spring housing market. Last year, we were very much expecting, a more normal market, a spring market where we see increased inventory, we see, active, more increase in buyer activity, and that never happened. It was a very, very disappointing housing market, and which in turn affects the entire housing market going forward into the summer and the fall because of the fact that those buyers are just sitting, which means that inventory is just sitting. So it was definitely felt last year. And I think with the tariffs, it was, like he says, it was the fear of what the tariffs could potentially do. And we saw like the tip of the iceberg on home building, material prices and things of that nature, was actual tangible. We saw the early onset of that for sure. This last year's disappointing housing market derailed home sales for the third year in a row as tariff headlines dented consumer confidence the Fed paused rate cuts and mortgage rates rose. Just a reminder, mortgage rates and the Fed rates are not directly, they're indirectly, not directly connected. Mortgage rates are influenced by investor confidence, investor activity. And that's super important because these things, oil prices, gas prices, consumer confidence all affects what investors will do. It says, consequently, 2025 was one of the slowest years for the housing market in decades. It goes on to say the worry in 2026 is that history is repeating itself, or at least rhyming. While it's too early to tell right now if the war, rising prices, uncertainty, or potentially higher mortgage rates are disrupting people's home search, this will become much more clear in the coming weeks. Kimmel notes that until the war began, 2026 had been shaping up to be a promising year for home buyers, with mortgage rates hitting a 3-year low of 5.98% in late February. It says Realtor.com housing data for February also showed a welcome increase in new listings and a bump in pending home sales, providing early indicators of a strong selling season. However, because the bond markets, and this is important, because the bond markets that dictate mortgage rates are highly sensitive to inflation, the average mortgage jumped back above 6% last week and is expected to climb higher as long as oil shock persists. Now, I wanted to show you guys where we are at in terms of the 30-year rate. And you can see right around where things started to happen. February 27th, the average 30-year fixed was hanging out at about 5.99. And then it shot up March 3rd, March 4th to 6.12 and 6.13. It came down a little bit and then shot back up to 6.14. Right now, on today, it's sitting at about 6.09. Still the low sixes. We're not talking, jumping from 5.75 up to 6.75. It's not what we're talking about. We're talking about less than a quarter of a point. Impact, yes. Significant? Not yet. Not yet. This is the thing that is concerning, though, is the fact that since we're at the beginning of this and oil prices rose, here's the thing: oil prices came back down. Today's crude oil rate cost per barrel dropped back down to $87.45. So although it jumped up, to the $100, it came down. This graph doesn't do you any good because it's only till February 2nd, but this is as of today. As of today, it's March 10th, it's 87. A few days ago, it was 100. That means that things are stabilizing. And if things, go kaput and we pull out of Iran, this could be just a blip and we go back onto maybe a normal housing market. But it could flip the other way. There's obviously a lot of factors involved. It says recession fears, which had gradually faded away, are also resurgent. Our prediction, Marketplace Polymarket, the probability of a recession in 2026 surged above 40% on Sunday, a level not seen since fall. That has come down. Absolutely has come down since Sunday. It says, like 2025, the economic panic and uncertainty alone could be enough to torpedo momentum in the housing market. The American economy and consumer is extremely resilient overall, but when it comes to making a big decision like selling or buying a home, consumers need confidence and clarity in the near term. The events of the past 10 years are really testing that right now. Here's my commentary on that. My commentary on the impact on a lot of these things kind of goes back to what I was just saying a few minutes ago. And that is, the housing market, what's going on in the housing market, what's going on with interest rates, what's going on with inventory, home prices. Historically, I would argue that homeowners sell, home buyers buy based on their own personal economy. What does that mean? The market might be tanking. The inflation might be going up. But if in your own personal economy, your job is you're doing well in employment, you have a good income stream, you have income coming in, maybe you have savings, maybe you have home equity, you have a solid financial position, and the reason that you want to make the move is stronger than what the economy is doing. And for those that argue, oh, the economy is the end all be all, and that's the thing that will keep people, and I've heard, all the rhetoric about how the economy is going to tank because of XYZ. It's going to tank because of the Iran war or whatever, interest rates. Or I read an article today, earlier that talked about foreclosures surging. Foreclosures are not surging. I could not find any data that they were surging. Foreclosures have been an all-time low for years, and now they're starting to tick up. Does that mean it's a surge? No, they're normalizing. In every market, good and bad, people come into hard times. They come into hard times, whether it's their doing or not. They come into hard times. There's foreclosures. There's always foreclosures. They're just getting back to normal levels. Why? Because there was a moratorium during the pandemic where lenders put a hold on foreclosures so people didn't lose their homes and they were homeless in the middle of the pandemic. Those moratoriums are being lifted. And if those folks weren't able to improve their financial situation, guess what? The foreclosure is continuing. But is it at a point where it's catastrophically high levels? I could not find any evidence. I could not find any data. I found a lot of articles saying it's coming, just like, interest rates could go through the roof, or prices could crash and there's maybe a big market crash. All that it's all hearsay. It's all hearsay based on what? The interpretation of the data. But I haven't seen actual data to say that the rates, the foreclosures are gone higher than what would be normal. There's no history of that, and there's no evidence to support that might be coming down the pipe. But to get back to this, the reason why I talk about this, obviously, is so you guys are understand what you're seeing in the news and understand, if anything, my commentary on it to get you thinking. And that's the whole point, is I don't want you to buy into what I say. I want you to get it thinking, and I want you to get you thinking for yourself. I want you to advocate for yourself. So this is designed. What I try to do is try to get you to question and all the things, to say, okay, well, maybe this doesn't make sense. Maybe I don't buy into it. All right, I'm going to continue on with this dive into this stuff. I was just checking the chat. Angie says, hopefully gas prices won't stay too high too long, or moving cost will be crazy. Agreed. However, David there we go. Oil prices dropped 10% today. There you go. We see it, right, black and white, $87 a barrel. So I think the blip, and again, I bring this up because there's going to be, there's going to be news articles leaning left, leaning right, whatever, that are going to blow this up bigger than it actually is. And to say, okay, yes, it's not something you should ignore, but it ticked up over $100, but it didn't stay there. And a lot of this stuff is all based on, at the end of the day, it's all based on in what the investors do, what Wall Street does, what the bankers do, because they're going to make their decisions on the interest rates, on whether they're going to make a move on, buying, selling, and all the things, based on what they see in the market. And if they lose confidence, then that negatively affects interest, consumer confidence, and all the things. All right, let's see here. Angie says it was $4.89 yesterday. Last week, $4.19. That is still, it is higher than what we're used to, right? It's just way higher. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I said I was not aware during this period of time, but the gas, when there was a lines at the gas pump, was that in the 80s, where there was a gas shortage, and things are challenging now, they were challenging in recent years. You look back in the history books and you can see where things were just as hard, and it may be in a little different way, but very, very, very challenging. And yet we were able to make it through. We were able to make it through to the other side, and nothing, everything didn't implode. So is it worth spending $30,000 to renovate the kitchen at this time and sell it as is at a lower price? So my answer, I just had this conversation with someone just like yesterday, day before. You really need to know what the market trends are for your area. You need to know what the buyer trends, what the buyer expectations are for your area, specifically for your neighborhood. If you live in a neighborhood where the expectation is that all the other homes, and the buyers are expecting all the other homes have updated kitchens, and your home is the only one that does not, you may end up having to lower that price lower than what you would if you made that update. Now, that being said, I typically, as a rule of thumb, honestly, I don't think you should make any large updates, if you can't get 100% of your money back. If there's an exception, if the buyer expectations, are such that in order to sell at a price to compete, then you very well may make your money back based on that demand. Because if the demand is there and the buyers expect it, and they walk in and everything else created equal, the kitchen is the thing that take that objection right off the table. You could potentially not only sell it faster, selling it faster does mean more money in your pocket. Selling it faster means that the difference between the list price and the sale price is smaller. Homes sell for the most amount of money when they're sold right away, period. If a realtor does their job properly, and this is just, I'm isolating one example because there's so many different things a realtor is supposed to do, right? What a real estate agent is supposed to do. But proper pricing means that it sells right away. It doesn't mean that they're lowering the price below market value. It means that they're pricing it appropriately. The higher the price, if you're priced outside whatever market, and that's tough. That's not an easy thing to determine because you're trying to figure out what the house is worth based on what the buyer expectations are, what the buyer's perception of value. You have to determine that. But if you hit the nail on the head and they sell it right away, you're going to get close. You're going to get close or at, sometimes above, depending on the market, asking price. The longer it sits on the market, the bigger that gap gets. And that's when you lose money on renovations like that. Know your market. The best way to know your market, and I've said this before, you've got, the real estate agents have access to the data. Now, you can have access to some data. A lot of the MLSs will provide that for you online as a consumer. You can go on and get a lot of market reports. But it's not only the data, it's the interpretation of the data. And the interpretation of the data comes from experience. This is why I say you got to talk to your agent, not because your real estate agent is the gatekeeper necessarily of the information, but their experience will tell you, they'll be able to tell you based on this data, and I've seen this before, this is where the buyers are at. This is this is how I think you should price it. This is what I think you should do for updates. The agents have that experience. You've been in the business for 10, 20, 30 years. You tend to know. That's the thing that is going to probably be your best source of information. I'm going to jump back up to Leslie's question because I don't want to forget about it. So Leslie asked about what my thoughts are on buying a house with spray foam insulation. Read horror stories. So I'll be honest, I have not read or researched spray foam. I am not a fan. I think because maybe I'm old school, but I see a lot of videos. Of course, I'm a DIY nut. Obvious. I'm actually aching for a DIY project. I've been doing so much snow removal. I haven't had time. I haven't done any projects this significant projects this winter, and I'm itching for a project. But when I want to access, it depends on where you're at in the country. But if I want to access my foundation walls, if I want to access the under the floor from the basement, or if you're in a crawl space, if it has traditional fiberglass insulation, it's as easy as removing that fiberglass insulation. Spray foam encases everything. My question is, when you have spray foam that covers wiring, potentially plumbing, that to me is a nightmare because you can't see anything. Now, yeah, I guess it encases things, makes it a little bit more, stable and all the things, but I don't know what the R value comparison is, spray foam versus, traditional fiberglass. I don't know how, what the data is in terms of energy savings. I think spray foam leaves room, if it's not done properly, can be a nightmare. Can be a total nightmare. Massachusetts has this program called Mass Save, and they will come to your house. It's not free. I'm gonna retract that. It's not free. Everybody in Massachusetts pays a little bit on their electric bill to pay into this program to be, so that these people can come out for free, and then they give you huge discounts on things like insulation, which does work. I had my attic insulated. That's probably 15 years ago. It was a $2,500 job, and I only paid $300. That's great. However, they went around my house to make it more energy efficient, and live and learn. They put spray foam around door casings. They put spray foam. Every little crevice. That wreaked havoc. I had to chisel out all the spray foam around my basement door because it completely made the frame so tight you could hardly open the door. It was a nightmare. You got to be super careful. So I would just do some homework on that. Leslie, for sure. D asks, with rising gas and property insurance prices, plus rising interest rates and falling home prices, will more people turn to real estate investors versus listing? So those are two entirely different avenues for two entirely different situations. Selling to a real estate investor, you're going to take pennies on the dollar. And when I say pennies on the dollar, you're probably going to get, 60, maybe 70, if you're lucky, 70% of what the actual market value is. Period. Why? Because the investors are taking on all the risk. Is it for everyone? No. Is it for no one? No. I think that there's room for everyone. There's room for, there's a scenario for every opportunity, every service. I think real estate, if you have a home that is in a situation where you just need to let it go, and you've got, it's overwhelming, it needs a ton of work, you just need to financially, maybe you're on the brink of foreclosure, you just need to get out from under it yesterday, and you don't have time to interview agents and put it on the market and showings and all the things, then you know what? The trade-off is sell quick, you make less money, but you're out from underneath it. Listing it on the more open market, whether you do it on your own or hire an agent, two different things. You'll get different exposure, one or the other, but having it on the open market, period, is going to give you the opportunity to make more money, period. Because you're exposing to more people. You're not exposing yourself to one, a real estate investor, and that's it. You're now exposing that house to the whole market, the whole buyer market. You're going to make more money. Even if the house needs work, you'll make more money. There are FHA 203K loans. There are rehab loans. There are small-time investors that are looking on MLS that will buy a home and they'll pay for a fair market value. The market value reflects what the buyer's willing to pay. The buyer's not going to pay the same amount of money as a house that's fixed up, but they buy it, hold it for a short period of time, fix it up and either rent it or flip it. You'll still make more money than selling to a real estate investor. I think selling to a real estate investor sounds good, but I think if you're curious, here's what I would say. If anyone is curious about, here in Massachusetts, I don't know if they're nationwide or not. It's called, We Buy Ugly Houses. There's like billboards and stuff like that. I had a client who asked me about it, who was thinking about, getting ready to put their house on the market. And I said, you know what, if you're interested, just call them. They got a postcard in the mail. I said, just call. If you're curious, I'm not going to tell you what to do. satisfy your curiosity. Call them, meet with them. Don't sign anything because, the devil's in the details. And if you read every single letter, okay, call them. Sure enough, it was 60 cents on the dollar. It wasn't as appealing at the end of the day. So if you're curious, call them. Just don't jump. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Make sure you read the details. Make sure you read all the fine print. Let's see here. Angie says if the market really were to get bad again, I would just wait to sell. Prices will eventually come up eventually. I'm going to get into some data on the inventory. I think that they're, at this point, knowing what I know about the market, the U.S. housing market, knowing the data and the trillions of dollars in equity, the trillions of dollars in home equity, that alone is going to be the reason why the market doesn't crash. Because in order for the market to crash, that means the sellers are going to have to cut their prices significantly to unload their houses. And yes, there are going to be sellers that have to let the houses go. No question about it. But is it on a large scale? No, there's going to be I think the majority of folks, especially if you're in that, Gen X, late Gen X, baby boomer, you've owned your home you've owned a home for a significant amount of time to build up equity, whether you bought one, sold it, bought another, transfer that equity from home to home, you can weather the storm. The people that are going to be impacted by any kind of significant move in the market are going to be the folks that have little equity, period. Or the folks that have, they're impacted greatly by the rising cost of HOA or homeowners insurance. But even then, those that are impacted by the homeowner insurance and rising HOAs, if they have equity, they're not going to foreclosure. They're just going to sell. They're just going to sell, and whatever comes their way, but they'll just sell the property. The market goes up and down, guys. This is just the fact of the matter. It always has and always will. Dun, 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 dun. D says, given our political issues plus economic uncertainty, we do not bank on lower gas prices or lower inflation long term. Lower expenses, something you can control. You know what? So here's the thing I always say, and I tend definitely I'm a glass half full person, but I'm also pragmatic. I'm not, stick my head in the sand and everything's rainbows and unicorns. Like, no, it's like nothing's, these issues exist. But can we control them? No, we can't control them, but we can control our personal economy. So what does that mean? You cut back. You cut back on expenses. You don't travel as much. You cut back on going places, dining out, and all the things. 110%. 110%. Something I wanted to show you too, actually, on that. And, there's a lot of talk about inflation and the stagflation and all the things. And this is the U.S. inflation calculator, Coin News Media Group that put this data together. This is from 2000, last 26 years, 2020, 26. And what was interesting is it shows what the inflation is in a graph, but more granular. And I like the fact that it was granular, shows what's been happening in the last, and this goes all the way to 2000, for every 12 months. Now the data for February will be available March 11th for this year. But if we look at the overall inflation, and you know what, guys, regardless of who, what side of the aisle, or if you're in the middle or whatever, it doesn't matter. These numbers, there's no pattern. There's no hard pattern. And every president does it. Things are going to be better with me. Every president does it. Why? Because it's politics, and I just can't stand politics. But if we look at the inflation data, it's not great, but it's not terrible. You look at the 2023. 2020 to 2023, we had a pandemic. We can't get caught up on where we were at with that because things were sideways. But if we go back even pre-pandemic and you look at 2.5, we're in the twos, we're two. I mean, ideally they want to be at 2.5%. 2% is ideally, that's what the Fed wants. 2% inflation. That's where we want it. 2024, it was coming down. It went back up. 2025 went back up 3.0%. And then it started to come back down again, kind of bounced around a little bit. But we're not crazy high inflation rates yet. And do I think that the Iran conflict is going to cause crazy inflation? I don't know. I haven't, if anything, it could be short term. Depends on how long we're over there. It really depends on how long. But Dee, thank you for posting that because I 100% agree. Michael, you're excused. You get a hall pass. Sorry, I'm late. He says. Jose QQQ, why is the American dream so impossible to reach? Oof. I keep saving money. House prices keep rising. I am losing the will to live. You know what, my friend, you're in, you got a lot of company in that. It is hard. Inflation is going to be, is not going to make it any easier. Inflation alone is not the reason. Mortgage rates are not the reason. Housing prices alone are not the reason. However, how do we get here? It was the pandemic. It was all those things working together in a perfect storm when we're all stuck inside. And interest rates went historically abnormally low, which allowed people to push their money further and compete for housing and all the things. I read an article earlier today that says the investors are the ones that created this crazy unaffordable situation. No, they did not. No, they did not. I will go toe to toe with anybody that says that because I saw it on the front lines. People buying homes for $100,000 over asking. Why? Because they could. Because they could. Because 2 years ago, when the interest rates were 3 times as high, they could only afford to do $50,000. Now they can do $100,000, or maybe that cash. Because now, as prices are rising, they have more equity. More equity means more purchasing power. More purchasing power means you have a lack of supply, which we had going into pandemic. We had lack of supply, which created more demand. And people were able to step up to that demand because they had money, period. The real estate agents didn't cause it. Real estate agents don't have that much power. As much as you guys like to point, sometimes folks will point fingers, the real estate agent drove the prices up. No, they did not. Real estate agents can't force anyone to buy anything at any price, which is why homes are sitting on the market right now. Real estate agents don't have that power. Let's not assume that they do. Okay? It's about interpreting the market. But that's the thing, the gap between the home prices going up, they went up too fast, right? It's all about the relationship between income and home prices. And that creates that affordability situation. Right now, that gap is huge. Why? Because income did not rise at the same level as housing prices did during pandemic. They severely outpaced income. The longer housing prices stay flat, maybe in some areas go down a little bit, some areas will go up a little bit, but as long as we don't have any crazy jumps over time, Jose, that gap is going to close. And it may take 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, but it will get closer. It will. So you know what? The fact of the matter is you've got to do the thing that is comfortable for you. And I think what's going to happen with a lot of folks in this year and next year and the year after, there's going to be a shift in what their expectations are. Because eventually, Jose, you're going to get sick of waiting and you're just going to say, you know what can I buy? What can I buy? I want to buy the 2,500 square foot home. Nope. You can buy a 1,500 square foot home. And you figure out how to make that work. I grew up in a 1,500 square foot home with five children. There's 7 of us. I'm the oldest of 5. 1,500 square foot, bath and a half. Okay. I didn't have my own bedroom until I got divorced 5 years ago. I just around my sister, moved in with my then boyfriend, then husband, that became husband and married and all the things. And that was just, that was the way it was. I didn't suffer. That was the adjustment. I think we're going back to that for at least a period of time where we just need to get back to what do we need? What do we need? I see a lot of first-time home buyers now that are, they want to buy their, whatever they grew up in, or they want to, the house that they're going to be in for the next 15 years. That's their first property. And that's not the way it was. That's not the way, I remember when I first got in this business, first-time home buyer was buying a 2-bedroom, 1-bath little ranch that needed a little bit of work. Nowadays, the first-time home buyers don't want to touch it. They want something turnkey. They don't want to do anything. And that doesn't mean don't get it over your head, but I think we're going to see a resurgence of small condos, townhomes, affordable, entry level, so that you don't have maintenance, exterior maintenance. But I think that's where we're heading, Jose. That's where we're heading, and the idea of American dream is being redefined. What is the American dream? The American dream is not paying a landlord, paying somebody else's rent, paying out somebody else's mortgage. It's paying your own mortgage. I met with my financial advisor yesterday and planning for retirement and all those fun things. I'll be working for a long time. But what's the number one asset in my portfolio that grows, on average faster than the stock market? My home. Period. It's my home. Oh, Angie says spray foam is popular here and can be used as long as it's installed properly. We don't have high humidity here, though. That's why I encourage you to research where you're seeing that, because we don't see that a lot here at all for that reason. Let's see. Miss H, hello. Good to see you. Jen, when there's a home saying it will be on the market for a certain date, what are they doing? Fixing up things, taking offers privately? Because next time I see it, it says sold or pending. So, yeah. Okay. So you go on Zillow and sometimes you'll see like a coming soon, on the listing. The reason they do that, it could be because of sellers just aren't quite ready to have people start coming to the house. It could be an intentional marketing strategy, to try to, encourage interest, attract interest. Depending on your area, there are better days to list than others in terms of having the most exposure, the most level of activity. That being said, depending on the agreement between the listing agent and the seller may authorize them to bring in parties from the outside. Now, I'm not going to pass judgment and say that that's good or bad. I personally think that putting a house on the open market where it's available to everyone to see and everyone to bid, it's not about just, being fair. No, it's a marketing strategy. The more people you come into the house, the better chance you have of having more offers, more interest, and more offers and more interest means higher sale price. But that's not to say that a seller doesn't want people walking through the house. If a seller is just like, I don't want the headache, I don't want to be worried about people, strangers walking through my house. They're concerned about it. And someone in the listing agent's office or listing agent's company says, I got a buyer and the price is fair and the seller's happy. At the end of the day, it's all about what the seller wants. Period. If it's more important to the seller to sell it quick than to put it in the open market to get another 10,000, everyone's goals are different. Everyone's goal is not to get the most amount of money. It's just not, which is why people sell to investors. Period. They just want the people, they just want the house. It's more important to them to not have the headache, the stress of having someone, having multiple people, all the things. So that could be happening. There is the potential, Miss H, that there's some underhanded stuff with the agent. There's always a possibility that they're going to do a dual agency situation. And I did a whole video on this. I am adamantly opposed against dual agency. Dual agency, for those, if you're watching this, you're like, what are you talking about, Jen? Dual agency is when one agent represents both the seller and the buyer at the same time. The listing agent puts the house on the market, buyer reaches out to the listing agent. I want to see it. The listing agent says, I can represent you. And the buyer says, sure, okay, you got to pay me a buyer agent fee. Okay, sure. And that now the listing agent is now representing both parties, double dipping, as they say in the industry. So they get both commissions. Adamantly opposed. Now that is different than a listing agent being a facilitator to a buyer. Totally different. What is that? That would mean, and I've done this before. I haven't done it in a few years, but if a buyer reaches out to me and I say, hey, do you have a buyer agent? They said, no, we're not interested in agent representation. The last one I can remember, actually, they said it was a younger couple, and they said their dad, her dad was a retired real estate attorney, and he's going to represent them. Okay, great. As long as you understand, Massachusetts has a form that outlines, I do not represent you as a buyer. And they end up making an offer. I don't give them advice. I was very clear with this with them right up front. I'm not giving you advice. I'm not giving you any pointers. I'm not going to, that's not, like, I can't do that because I don't represent you. I only represent the seller. At that point, I'm just facilitating the paperwork with the buyer. I do not represent them. Now, and when I represent them, facilitate, on the buyer side, do I ask, I have it in my agreement, and I'll be transparent with you. I do ask for a fraction of percentage more. Why? Because I've got to babysit a buyer. Because I don't have a buyer's agent who has vetted the buyer, talked to the buyer, counseled the buyer, guided the buyer. Don't forget, buyer, you got to get your homeowner's insurance. Don't forget, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you got to make your mortgage application, schedule your home inspection. I've got to do that for the benefit of my seller to make sure the transaction stays on point. So, and then that's more work. So that's my thought on that. Hopefully, that was a long-winded answer. I apologize, guys. Gotta get off on a tangent. Oh, TM says silver tsunami coming. My opinion on that is it's not coming. Silver tsunami means that all the baby boomers are going to list at the same time. It's just not going to happen. They've been talking about that for several years. There will be more to come. There's more inventory coming, which will help regulate prices, but it's not going to all descend on the market at the same time. Not even close. Why? Because the boomers are living longer. They're not going into nursing homes. They have choices. All right. Michael says, what is going on with the 10-year note? Well, you know what? I touched on this earlier with the mortgage rates in terms of, the 10-year note is the thing that impacts the mortgage rates the most. And the interest rates are ticking up, but it really is, and the 10-year treasury is based on investor activity. And investors didn't, they were nervous that when the conflict in Iran started, that made them nervous. That upset the investor pool, which in turn affects the 10-year treasury. It affects mortgage interest rates, affects the whole kit and caboodle. Things are starting to settle down, which is why it dropped back down today, 6.09%. If this shot up like a rocket, was up at 6.5%, or higher, I think I'd take more notice, especially where I heard through the grapevine today. I think I heard something about the U.S. pulling out of Iran, and maybe as soon as a week, but who the heck knows? I don't have any. I don't have anybody on the inside at the administration in DC. So I'm not in the know. What's going to happen with that? All right, I'm going to get back to this. Talk about stagflation, and we're not talking stag like stag party. we're talking inflation. It's a different type of inflation. It says what stagflation would mean for mortgage rates, just kind of like a little bit elaborate there, Ms. H, on the interest rates here. Stagflation is marked by surging unemployment. This is why it's different than inflation. Surging unemployment combined with high inflation. It is one of the most dreaded situations for our economy because it defies the normal management tools of the Fed. It is very, 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 very hard to correct. Why? Because the Fed uses higher interest rates to fight inflation, right? If the cost of goods are going up, they raise the rates so that they try to push the cost of goods down. And when they raise the rates, less people buy. That means that they lower the prices in like layman's terms. It says in lower rates, stimulate the job market. Lower rates stimulate the economy. We saw that. Leaving the central bank in a dilemma when both sides of the mandate are in crisis. Right now, the jobs report came out. It was not good at all. Jobs report came out on Friday. So yes, they need to stimulate the jobs market. But if they lower rates, it'll just add fuel to the fire with inflation. This is the dilemma of stagflation. And actually, this is what I was thinking about earlier. This is the most prominent historical example of stagflation arose from the 1970s. I said 1980s. That's not right. 1970s oil crisis, when an oil embargo from Middle Eastern producers sent the price of crude oil skyrocketing. The exact opposite. It said go down, went back up. It says it triggered a recession amid soaring prices, forcing the Fed to raise its benchmark interest rate in the middle of an economic downturn. The exact opposite of what you want to do. You raise rates when the economy is on the downslide. The economy is on the downslide. It means nobody's buying anything. You raise rates. All it does is, again, add fuel to the fire. It says mortgage rates topped at 10%, even as unemployment hit 9%. They couldn't. It's like, what do you fix? You try to fix the interest rates, or you try to compensate for the unemployment. This is a painful combination of for the housing market. This graph kind of shows the mortgage rates and the federal funds rate and the relationship between the two. Over the since the early 1970s, and you can see the average. Where it follows it. Not exactly, and this is why following what the Fed does in their interest rates is not the end all be all. We don't, it has a little bit of an impact, but not, just because the Fed rate goes down does not mean mortgage rates are going to go down. It says a similar outcome is far from assured in 2026, and a quick resolution to the Iran conflict and resumption of normal oil trade through the Strait of Hormuz, try not to butcher me if I said that incorrectly, could quickly put the economy back on a positive track. Now, as this administration is known for, there's a lot of talk. If there is U.S. intervention in opening up the Strait of Hormuz, that could have negative impacts on our U.S. economy as well. It says, however, if the war drags on, or if rogue Iranian commanders continue to threaten regional shipping traffic, even after the ceasefire, elevated oil prices could have profound ripple effects on the economy. The Fed, already in a holding pattern on interest rates, would likely push back its outlook for the next rate cut. They don't want to cut the rates because they don't want to push inflation higher. If inflation appears poised to spiral, a rate hike could even be on the table. Scenario Cleveland Fed President Beth Hammack has already warned of. She says there are two-sided risks to rates. If we see more weakness emerging in the labor market, it could mean that we need to provide more accommodation. If we don't see inflation moving towards target as I expect, it could mean that we need to put more restriction on the economy. It's it's a very complicated situation. It far more complicated than above my pay grade to a certain degree. You have enough information to be informed, but it is complex and it's not an easy fix. A crash is not going to fix it. A low mortgage rates is not going to fix it. Less inventory, low housing prices. None of these things separately are going to be the answer to this potential stagflation situation. All right, so let's see what's going on in here in the chat real quick, and make sure you type in QQQ and all the things. I never did my outline tonight. Skipped right over that. If you guys need wins, post your wins. Oh my goodness. I think I was so excited today because the temperatures were up and the snow is melting like crazy. I can see my my dead grass. Let's see. TM says, I refuse to FOMO, fear of missing out. The past few years, bought gold and silver and will liquidate soon when the right home shows itself. The metals have done amazing. Good for you. Good for you. And you know what? I think FOMO is the one thing everyone should stay away from. You've got to, and this is why, TM, this is why I harp incessantly on this channel, in every live stream, every video, you've got to do, is it the right time to buy? Is it the right time to sell? You need to look at them in the mirror, period. You need to do a personal inventory of your financial situation, the reason why you want to move. What's your health stability, your job, money, family situation? What is the real reason you want to do this? That will be the thing that will protect you from making a jump decision. Here's the thing, guys. Yes, every home is unique in its own way. Yet they're not like cars. You miss one here, you can go to this dealership and get the same car. Agreed. However, I have seen this. I've seen play out. I always tell my home buyers when they miss out on, don't get an offer accepted, and they miss out or whatnot. Everything happens for a reason. When you miss out on something, there's a reason why you didn't miss out. And I know that's all like, squishy, whatever, what do they call that? Woo-woo talk or whatever they want to call it. Like, oh, everything happens for a reason. Well, you know what? The fact of the matter is I can't count how many times my home buyers, myself, and I experienced this myself. I missed out on first, making an offer on the first property that I was trying to buy. I was devastated. And then a month later, however long it took, I don't remember, another property came on the market. And I was so glad. I'm so glad I lost the first house. This one is different, but in so many ways better. And, in the important ways than the other one. Fear of missing out. If your personal inventory is not in alignment, period, and you see a house on Zillow or whatnot, and you're like, oh my God, that's the house I've dreamt of that house. But the boxes aren't checked. You're financially not ready, or maybe your job or whatever. If things aren't in alignment, press the pause button. There'll always be another house. And it may not be exact. It will likely not be exact, but it'll be the right house for you and make you happy in different ways. And I can only say that from doing this for 30 years. For sure. Andy says, baby boomers aren't stupid. 110% agree, my friend. Yeah, no, it's there's got to be respect for experience. There's got to be, and it's not. You know what? Here's the thing. If you're not a baby boomer and you're watching this and and for all those that are, it's not fair. They have equity, all the things. The economy was different. The administration, I talked about this a while back, the administration put things in place after World War II so that when the soldiers came home, they could afford to buy a home and have someplace to go with their family. The administration stepped in. That they created this situation where these baby boomers could get into a home after they came home from World War II. Is that their fault? No. No. They had an opportunity. They had an opportunity for the American dream. They took it, and good for them. Does that mean we have no opportunity here? It's just a different opportunity. It's a different opportunity. I bet you looked at income. We're making a lot more money than they did back then. There's a lot more opportunity. It's a lot more opportunity in the sense of the type of jobs that are available, the fact that you can, I don't want to go work in a factory. I can work it from home and make more money. Those opportunities didn't exist. So instead of looking at it as what you're missing, you look at it what is available. What are the opportunities available? It just, I think champion that and just calling it the way it is, it's, they didn't create this situation. The savings, baby boomers are also savers. Then, Gen X, I'm telling you, all my friends were all in the same pickle. Not all, but a good chunk. We didn't save for retirement, period. Baby boomers saved. Baby boomers were remarkable savers. They also didn't have gadgets to distract them from saving all these things. I got to buy a new iPhone, a new whatever. Tim says, boomers aren't stupid, but even they can't comprehend what's going on today. I totally disagree. I'm sorry, Tim. Many on fixed incomes, repairs become difficult. Property taxes keep going. So here's the thing. I'm going to respectfully disagree because the fact of the matter is I think you're clumping this entire generation into one pool. Are there folks that are baby boomers that are on fixed income? Yes. Are there baby boomers that maybe didn't, have the same life experience and couldn't do repairs or didn't have the same financial stability? Yes. You can also say that about Gen Xers. You can also say that about late millennials. It's not a baby boomer issue. To put them all in the same bucket is just, I think it's not appropriate because, I can think of a ton of baby boomers that are not on fixed incomes, that have pensions and they're living comfortably, very comfortably. I go to the golf course and I see them. Golf course every day. You got to have a comfortable, income coming in retirement to be at the golf course every day. It's expensive. So I would caution, on that, as I always say at the end of my live streams every week is, be curious, not judgmental. I think that's that's the biggest issue right now, not to get off topic, but it's the fact that there's so much talk about putting all certain people, certain types of people in a certain age or certain whatever, into one basket. And that's like, the America's called a melting pot for a reason, right? Everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a situation, and it's not the same. It's not the same. Let's see. Jose says, why can't the U.S. government use our oil reserves so that oil prices can go down? That is a question that would let me know if you know someone that you can ask that question and get an honest answer on. Because here's the thing. I remember not too long ago and it came out in the news, it was a big discovery and undercover kind of thing and all that kind of stuff. Oil prices came down. The pump prices stayed up. Does this happen? Yup. Why? It's called corporate greed. And this happens on everything. It's the same reason where, why I think, the prices of lumber at Home Depot, the price, yes, it comes down a scotch, but if we start getting, to the point where things really start becoming more affordable, are the corporations going to lower these prices voluntarily if people are paying them? No. The U.S. government cannot force private corporations to do anything. They cannot. They cannot force private corporations to bring the prices down at the pump. They can use the oil reserves. They can pump a ton. You know what? Whether you're a fan of Biden or not, I wasn't necessarily a fan of Biden, but he did exactly that. He pumped a ton of oil into the economy, opened up all those reserves. And you know what it did to pump prices? Nothing. Marginally lowered, but they stayed $3, $4, $5 a gallon. And it's infuriating. It's infuriating. The government would like to think it has more power than it does. That's my feeling anyways. Let me know if you, well, don't let me know if you agree. I don't want to turn this into a political conversation. But I mean, it's applicable to this conversation because the fact that, it does affect you as a homeowner, does a potential homeowner. It absolutely affects you. Yes, Angie says, my parents are boomers and very savvy. Same, for sure. Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. Those are good, great cars. I was not in the military and worked very hard for everything I had. I took issue, and you guys know I don't take political stances on this thing, but you know what? I'm not. I just want to make a comment because it really, really bothered me. Really bothered me. Our president of this country last week said that protect the baby boomers and their equity and their protect their home prices. And it's not, it's something about the fact that it's not their fault that other generations were too lazy to work. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember. I don't exactly the exact words now, but the context of it was that he was insinuating that if you can't afford to buy a home, it's because you're not working hard to make the money to buy the home. I took a big issue with that. That infuriated me. Why? Just because you're working at McDonald's, just because you're working at a retirement home, okay? Just because you're a teacher, you're working your tail off. You're working your tail off. But the income isn't there. Why? Because education, there's only so much you can take from the education budget in any given town to pay teachers. And working at McDonald's or a gas station or whatever, there's only so much money that industry is going to pay. Does that mean you're not working 40 hours? No, a lot of people work 40, 50, 60 hours. Ridiculous, taking away time from their family. There's a lot of hardworking people out there in this country. And that really ticked me off. That really ticked me off. Because I don't, cutting people off at the knees like that it's not right. Anyways, that's my little side comment. But good for you, Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. Angie says, I disagree as well. Many boomers have more common sense than younger people. Well, you know what? It also has to do with, with age comes experience. The other thing I see happening is the thing that drives me crazy is the disrespect that boomers are getting. I'm Gen X, and we don't see it so much. Maybe I guess you see it in my generation, but the disrespect for the fact that how do boomers get here? Well, because they've been on the planet longer and they've had more experiences than I have. I respect that. I think it comes back to what I was saying earlier and what I close my live stream with every week. Be curious, not judgmental. Be curious. And what does that mean? Ask questions. Learn from people that know more than you. Learn from people that have been there when you haven't. I think there's something to learn from that. I might just, you know what? Off camera, I've got a little bit of a trucker mouth, and I monitor myself because I think it's the right thing to do. But sometimes things slip. It might happen. It's a great thing about YouTube. I'm not going to get canceled like Steve Gobert. Yikes. Oh yeah, I was talking about Richard Nixon and all the things. Oh yeah, you know what? I hate to disappoint you. This is green tea and honey. That's all it is. Every week, same thing. Specifically, it's organic. It's called throat coat. It helps when I get, talking a lot. It helps me coat my throat between that and the honey. It helps, but it's just that because I'm not really a drinker. I'm a lightweight. Never used to be, but I am now. Let's see. TM says my boomer neighbor now passed away. He was a high school teacher. He owned 7-acre with a 2,000 square foot home. A young rich couple purchased it for $500,000 with a down payment from their parents. That's crazy. You know what? That's called sacrifice, and it's the thing that is hard today. It's hard. Well, it's going to take much longer because of the cost of things. It will take a longer to save, but not impossible. If you want something bad enough, you'll figure out how to get it. If it means sacrificing, and not buying a new car, not leasing a new car, not getting the latest technology, just surviving on what you have. If it means being able to put that money away, I'm actually facing that right now with trying to fund my retirement, then you figure out a way to do it. If you want something bad enough, you'll figure out a way to do it. I want to talk about the inventory. So I talk about mortgage rates and talk about the inventory because that's been in the news lately. And as this Iran conflict has affected, the interest rates, has affected, the economy, consumer confidence, all the things, it's affecting home buyers, and home buyers are pressing the pause button for all those reasons. But inventory is still coming on the market. So this was some data that is, through February, we don't have March numbers, too early. This is a realtor.com put this information together. So the inventory is up since last year. More people putting their homes on the market. The number of actively listed homes rose 7.9% compared to last year, marking the 28th consecutive month of year-over-year inventory gains. Slowly, on a monthly basis, inventory ticked up 0.2% in January. This is nationwide February inventory, though, and I want to always, we go into a macro level, but then I want to give you perspective. Perspective is super important here because it's super easy to be like, oh my God, inventory is rising, and oh my gosh, there's 10 houses on the street that are for sale, and my town is flooded. You may be the only town in your state. You may be the only state in the country that this is happening to. But nationwide, February inventory is 16.8% below 2017, 2019 levels, about the same month. It's rising, but we're not in crisis. And this is the thing. This is why I'm just, you know what? It's again, the data doesn't show that the market's about to crash. Why? Because our inventory is not at peak levels. It's not even caught up to where we were before nationally, before the pandemic. And I'm going to show you, this shows, where we are now in February. So, it's up 7.9% year over year on February 26, and then where we were 25. Guys, as always, I'll put these articles in the description after the live stream so you can check it out yourself, and it kind of sees, this is where things were at 2020, and we saw it dip and then nosedive from there, which if you follow the market at all in 2020, you saw that happen. But here's where they were in 2019, 2017, 2019, when it was still a seller-favored market, but not as significant as it is now in many regions. We're not quite there yet overall. Here's the asterisk. The reason why is because of certain parts of the country. The Northeast is dragging their heels. stubborn Yankees. It has to do with economic situation. It has to do with job availability, demand, all the things. The Northeast is still well below where it needs to be. And actually, I'm going to scroll down here because this will kind of give you a better idea. This is regionally divided inventory recovery continues. This is February 26 versus pre-pandemic. This map should give you perspective. If you live in Texas, if you live in Denver, if you live in Seattle, that is not the norm for the rest of the country. It may feel like it is the norm. It may feel like the market's flooded and it's about to crash. But if you look at this map and you look at other parts of the country, you can see that we're not there yet. Inventory is going to drive demand. It's going to drive, which drives home prices. Right now, demand's a little lower because of all those reasons. But as I mentioned earlier, if a lot of these folks are in a situation where they don't have to sell, then there's no significant driving factor, meaning it's not a job transfer. It's not I've had a lot of folks reach out for referrals for, a parent dies, uncle dies, and that type of family member dies, passes away and they need to sell the house because it's vacant. That's a pressing matter, but not everybody's in that situation. And I think what we're going to see is if rates don't come down, stay down, it's not a favorable market. There's the consumer confidence is not there to inspire for buyers to feel comfortable to start getting out, start shopping. This inventory is going to wane. It will wane heading into the next part of this year. But a lot of these areas, you head up to Boston, we're still 38% below where we were prior to the pandemic. Houses are not. I put a condo on the market 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was after the snowstorm. 2 weeks ago. Sold it. Very fair price. Very fair price. 2 days. It was 3 days. 2 to 3 days. Didn't take long. Why? There's nothing available in the complex. There's hardly any condos, under 500,000 in the town of Plymouth. Demand. Things are moving. Things are moving, but it depends on where you are. Actually, this graph shows, the new, the actual activity. The other graph shows, what total listings. This actually shows what's happening for new listings. Listing activity rebounded in February with both new listings and pending sales up. Nationally, newly listed homes grew by 2.4% year over year and climbed 10% since last month. A typical seasonal pattern. This is the thing that we're watching, and how, if this doesn't continue. So you look at like every other year, you've got this, May, there's a week in May, which is, considered like the biggest selling week of the year. It's all a bunch of hype. It just happens to be the pinnacle of the spring housing market, when there's the most activity. I think a lot of that is you're past the point where, if you're in states with inclement weather, New England, you're out of the danger zone with snow, which means also that things are starting to grass is getting green, the flowers are starting to bloom. Things look the best. Right now, my lawn is atrocious. I told my daughter the other day, I said, oh, it's almost, look, as the snow melts and all the branches and the, all the things you get revealed. And she's like, Mom, I'm getting stressed out, because she knows I'm going to ask her to help me. And she will. But you can see where this, where the pinnacle is. It's pretty much the same. 2025, 21 kept on ramping up, the same with 22. 2017, 2019, we're not anywhere near close. We're getting there, but it's still a little bit below. This is where we need to watch on what happens in the next month. On if we see that trajectory continuing to climb, we're in good shape. That means then I'm going to be optimistic on the spring housing market, because it really is the busiest time of the year. Not necessarily the best time to sell, but it is the busiest time to sell. But we're going to have to watch it carefully because of the fact that right now it's not, the early signs, it's not terrible with the number of new listings, a lot of activity, which means people are just like, you know what, I'm not waiting. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. And we're tired of waiting. We're tired of waiting. And a lot of sellers will say, you know what, I know demand is lower, but here's the thing. Every house, and this is important, one of the things I wanted to mention, if you're in a situation where you have to sell, you're in a situation where you cannot be in your house any longer, or you have to unload it, and I'm not talking financial reasons, it could be financial, but it could be that it's just too much house, or your spouse passed, or you're divorced, or whatever, or you just, you know what, I don't want to do stairs anymore, or I'm being transferred for a job. There is someone who will buy your house. And I've said this before. The question is, at what price? If you start at $1, can you sell your house for $1? Yeah. For sure. You can sell your house for $1. Okay. You can sell it at $2. You can sell it for $3. You see where I'm going with this? You need to look at your house value, not at what you want for it, not what you need. What you need is irrelevant. What you want is irrelevant. It's relevant if you're going to take the house off the market, but if your intention is not to, you have to sell it. You need to find a buyer. Taking it off the market is not an option. Then what you need to be is, you have to look in the mirror, be very honest with yourself and say, okay, what is the point where we will get buyers through the door? Your agent, if you have a good agent, I talk about this all the time, we have a 20% agent, which is, and honestly, it's probably 10% of the agent population is really going to help you figure this out, with the data. I will say 20%, 80-20, it's the 80-20 rule. 20% of the agents, you interview one, you find an agent that's going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you necessarily want to hear. Of course, always, 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 it's going to be backed up by data. You got to see the data for your local market to help understand. Don't take your agent's word for it. You want to make sure you understand the number that the agent is recommending. But the reality is okay, maybe your house is on the market for $500,000 and you haven't had a bite in a month. Okay. So look at those numbers. Don't act on it, but look at the numbers and say, okay, what is sold at $475, $450, $425, $400? And if you look at the other houses that sold at $400, say, again, it's not personal taste. This is not about what you like about the house. This is, okay, what is the general market? What are the buyer trends in your neighborhood? If the demand is there, the evidence is in the data that shows that buyers have purchased homes that are very similar in what they offer to yours, and they sold at $425 not too long ago means the last 3 months recently, then you need to, it's not about what you want to hear, it's what you need to hear. And that's the fact. I always tell my clients, I'm not expecting you to like what I'm going to tell you. You don't have to like it. I just need you to understand it. And that, if you get that point, you're not giving the house away, you're just meeting the market value where the buyers don't, here's the thing, guys, the buyers don't disappear. The buyers, Jose, if a house came on in the market and you want to buy a house and it came on at a price that you could afford, that you saw the value in, would you pull the trigger? Yeah. Are you actively out looking? Not necessarily. That's my point. These buyers don't disappear. They don't get out of the market. They're just hitting pause. But if they see your house at a price that says, you know what, that's a fair price, that's a good deal for me, they're going to make an offer. You don't have to sit on the house for 2 months, 3 months. If it's moving slow, being aggressive with figuring out where you're supposed to be is the name of the game. Keep in mind, the longer the house sits on the market, the bigger the gap between the list price and the sell price, which means whatever you price it at $450. It should be at $425, but you price it at $450, and then it sits on the market 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. The next thing you know, you're getting an offer for $425. What happened if you had just priced it at $425 on day one? You're probably going to get at, or maybe even above, asking price, potentially. this is a business decision. No, it's hard. It is hard to separate business. This is why if you have a great agent, the agent will help you balance that emotional, decision making versus the logical decision making. I don't have any stake in my clients' homes. I have a home to come home to. I'm not talking about not caring. I'm talking about the fact that I can come from a place of very pragmatic suggestions. I'm not attached to their kitchen. I'm not attached to their garage. I'm not attached to all the blood, sweat, and tears that they poured into that property. To me, I'm going to give them information based on data. The home seller, it is hard, really hard to balance those two. And, because you're thinking in the back of your mind, well, I love it, so somebody else must too. And maybe that's the case, but that's not a great marketing strategy. That is not a great marketing strategy. Okay. Let's see. What you got? Agent Dawkins says corporate greed. Yes. 100%. I don't care who you are. Corporate greed is an all-time high. It's just, you see it in the income disparity between those at the top and those at the bottom. Tim, I'm going to adamantly disagree. Why? Because I, not too long ago, helped some teachers buy a house. That is, so I'm going, and that's in Massachusetts, one of the most expensive states in the country. So, again, absolutes. We try not to do absolutes because it can be dangerous. Not all teachers are renting. They're not. They're busy doing things beyond their pay grade, which means they're not spending money on vacations and expensive things because they don't have time, because they're prepping all the time. Some of the hardest working people I know are teachers because the work never stops. Jose asks, are houses overseas, like in Europe and Canada, cheaper? Or are they in the same boat as us? I know it's somewhat cheaper in the Philippines. So that's a great question. To be honest, I don't follow the international housing market. However, on YouTube, all the times where I hang out, and articles come up, and I know that Canada is struggling. A lot of countries are struggling. And I honestly, I couldn't, I don't want to even speculate because I don't know the facts, but I would, if I were to speculate, I would say it all stemmed from the pandemic because it was a worldwide pandemic, so I don't know. Great question though. Let's see, TM says that Europe and Canada are more expensive. Mexico is cheaper. So is Japan. Depends. Thank you for that information. Neil says, QQQ, given with the current economy, is a good time to list my mom's house. Goes back to what I was saying earlier. Depends on whether it's a good time to, for you, for your mom, or if your mom's passed, for you, like, does it make sense on your household economy and the goals that you have? If your mom's still alive, it's a good time for her. If she's passed, then you got to look at financially. There is an IRA, there's a window with capital gains that you can't get around to avoid paying excessive capital gains tax when someone passes away. You don't have the luxury of time to not sell it. So you really got to look, and that's specific to you. It has nothing to do with the economy. Nothing. I would say that, again, it goes back to what your personal situation is. I'm going to drive this home because even when the economy is tanking, there are people making a lot of money. There are people, and I'm not talking about top of the food chain, like, I hate to even say the top of the food chain, it's like putting them on a pedestal, but people that are the billionaires, the millionaires, people are making, $500, $800, $750 million a year in income. I'm not talking about them. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about, you know, if you're in a situation financially where you're comfortable and you're in a job that is consistent and is not impacted by the market. It's not, you have, you have money coming in. Not everybody is suffering. Not everybody is struggling. It's again, putting everybody into the same bucket, I think is not accurate because everybody's situation is different. Alex asks, why is listing price so important? Buyer can always offer less. Oh, that's a great question. And I'm so glad you asked that because I think that's a question that a lot of sellers, home sellers, want to ask, but don't. Instead they push for their own list price because that's the price that they think that they should do because of a built-in, negotiation. It's psychological. Psychological. What do I mean by that? It's psychological in the sense that if you have the house that it should be $425,000 and you listed it $450, buyers are more educated now than they ever have. Why? Internet. Internet gives them a ton of data. They know what the neighbor's house sold for. They know, unless you're in Texas. There's a couple of states that block all that information to the public, which I think is wrong because it doesn't allow people, consumers to advocate for themselves by seeing the data. They got to rely on a real estate agent for the data, and I'm opposed to that. Those days, that ship has sailed. But they have access to that information. They have access to, what other homes in the area. And if they see a home that's priced above what other homes have sold for, and yes, you may have great pictures and all the things, but they're going to say, A, I can't afford it. B, the seller's overpricing the house for what they think the house is, worth. And they may not even come in the front door. Typically, can a buyer make an offer? Well, logically, yes. But the thing that's important to know is that buyers don't make decisions like that logically. They don't. They make it emotionally. Whether it be a nudge because it's the house that they've always, had their eye on, or all checks all the boxes, And if the price is out of their range, they may not even come to the front door. You've got, the price gets the conversation started, but the conversation is not even going to get started if it's not enticing to the buyer. The buyer, looks at it as, is this something that I'm even willing to negotiate? They may automatically assume that the seller is not going to negotiate because the price is too high. You can see that. The longer the house sits on the market, I see this time and time and time again. You see it's been on the market for 3 months with no price adjustments. Huge red flag. That tells me when I'm scouting for a buyer, and I met a client last week to look at a house that was on the market for 230 days with one price reduction. And we knew that this house was not going to be, it was a unique property, but I had my discussions with my buyers and they ultimately decided not to move forward on it. But, we had the conversation that it was highly unlikely that the seller's going to come down to where they think the value is because it's still way too high. That's why listing price is so important. The listing price is a strategy. It's a marketing strategy to get people in the door. If it doesn't get people in the door, you lose, period. It doesn't matter. The buyer, can make an offer on anything. It could be $100,000 overpriced, doesn't matter. But the buyer won't do that. They won't make that offer if they think the seller's a stick in the mud, not going to negotiate. I'm telling you that from experiential knowledge. That's why I'm a big fan, and I very, very, very strongly encourage, don't play games with the list price. Don't. Figure out what is fair market value, not what you think it is, but what the data tells you. Look at the fair market value, and then you price it. Now, if you have a house that's exactly in alignment, but maybe yours has, is freshly painted, spruced up, or maybe it's got a little, some features, a new walkway or something. Maybe you could go a little bit higher. But the fact of the matter is sometimes it's better to go a little lower than your competition to get people in the door. You're not giving away the farm, you're getting traffic. More traffic means more activity. More activity means more offers. More offers means higher sale price. Hope that makes sense. Scott says a good listing agent will collect buyer feedback from showing agents from open houses. Yes, this will tell the seller what they have right and where the buyers have challenges. 110%. I would say that the challenge there is getting the feedback. And I'm just, I'm looking at this from, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Buyer agents were so much more responsive. Now, I can send a text and never hear from them again. I've sent, multiple emails and never hear from them. But repeated attempts and all the things, it is one of the ways that you can collect data. But not only say, oh, do they want it? No, they don't want it. Well, why? Is it the price? Is it the condition? Is it location? Is it, yada, yada. That feedback is crucial because that is a piece of data from the market. That's like the best data sample you can possibly get because they're right in they're walking through your property. It's not, you're not even, looking at a crystal ball. You're actually talking to the people that want or don't want to buy your house. 100%. Frank says, as soon as this conflict is under control, the oil will be even cheaper and the whole area will be stable. Who would have thought Qatar, Emirates, and Saudis would be fighting together over to deal with the U.S.? Yeah, I mean, we'll see. You hope. I mean, it's question mark. And like I mentioned earlier, just because we have cheaper oil doesn't necessarily mean the economy will feel the benefits. Because we've seen that happen. Let's see. Big Daddy, I love your handle. Video's information has been invaluable. Hi from Arkansas, where Jordan didn't work out for us. Oh, yes. Well, hello. I'm really glad that you're here. I was super glad that you're here, and thank you for that. I am happy. That makes me happy when you folks, give me the feedback that my teachings are helping. Yes, Denny says Zillow, Redfin, Homes, Realtor.com, Trulia. You have all the data at your fingertips. Actually, Zillow owns Trulia. You do have an incredible amount of information. This is one of the metrics in how I go through my research process when I am researching my referral partners. When you guys reach out for a referral and you're in Arkansas, you're in, California or Alaska, I don't personally know every single agent in the country and what their sales data is, where they've sold, how many houses they've sold, all the things. I go to all those websites. All those websites give me insight on where they're selling, how often they're selling, how many homes. If I pull up an agent and they sold 5 homes last year, sorry, that's not enough experiential knowledge. It's not. It makes me, question. If all of a sudden there was a dip because of, in last year's prior, the average 30 homes, and then all of a sudden they have 5 homes. I rarely see that because that might be like a blip, like illness or something like that. But typically it's not, and it's something that is it's fantastic to have that kind of information. TM asked about the 50-year mortgages. So I did a live stream about this when they were first introduced. I think they're a terrible idea. And actually, I had actually, when I'd researched it, read several articles that gave a perspective from a financial, economist, economist perspective of financial mortgage professionals, these type of things, and looked at, the impact and the accrued interest on a 50-year note and how that, what the actual cost to the borrower is. And believe it or not, a 50-year mortgage, you will pay a higher mortgage payment on a 50-year mortgage. Typically, it's interesting to see. I mean, obviously, you're going to have an additional 10 years of interest. That's why. That's why the accrued interest on a 50-year, it does not help an average home buyer at all. All it does is slow down the accumulation of equity and shortens that. It makes that period, usually it's about 8 years where you get to that, hump where you pay all the massive amount of interest at the beginning of the mortgage, and then eventually get to a point where it starts to tip. You start paying a little bit towards less interest, more principal, and then it flips, and that's when you start building your equity because you're actually paying down your mortgage. Same thing with student loans. So I was looking at my student loans that I co-signed for my older kid, and I got depressed and I closed the file. So paying mostly interest, finally starting to flip, but it's like, you just all that accrued interest while they're in school. It is what it is. Tetris, I'm new here. What are your thoughts on the market having been a speculative bubble? What's your outlook for 2027? Honestly, I don't have an outlook for 27 at this moment. Because we're such in a state of flux. There's so many moving parts. I think that the safe, if I were to do it on a very conservative basis, I would say it's going to be marginally better than this year. I think that's the best case scenario. I think that's the scenario that will benefit the market the most. A fraction of improvement, but what we're looking for appreciation that is less than the increase in employment. We want employment incomes, not this way. We want employment to the average income to grow faster than the housing market values. Housing market values stay the same, or 1%, 2%. I'm fine. The 50-year average for home value appreciation is 4.5%. But if we look at, income hasn't been able to keep up. They fell behind during pandemic. But if we can consistently be at a point where incomes are rising, and you know what, guys, they do. The cost of living raises happens, and it's not enough most times, but income does grow. Slowly, it does grow year to year. We want housing prices to grow slower. That would be the best case scenario. Interest rates stabilize. I think a significant drop in interest rates will artificially inflate the market. It'll be like, similar. We'll be having flashbacks of 2020, 2021, where low interest rates artificially, fed the housing market. Money was cheaper. Prices went, more people came out of the woodwork and prices went through the roof. I think they need to stay right where they're at, right around 6%, and consistently. And I think the longer they stay at this point, people will become accustomed to it. And they say, you know what, this is the rate it's going to be. So I'm going to build what I can afford. I'm going to plan for this interest rate, period. And yes, there may be slow blips here and there, but I think that is conservatively what I think is going to happen. I do not think that there is a speculative bubble. There is no speculative buying right now. It's entirely different. It's entirely different than it was at, for the great financial crisis. Entirely different. Why? For starters, the thing that triggered the great financial crisis was the mortgage industry, and the fact that if you could fog a mirror, you can get a mortgage. Stated income, no doc loans. What does that mean? I could walk into a mortgage lender, and tell them I make $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year as a self-employed individual, and they say, okay, how much do you want your mortgage for? Watch The Big Short. Watch the movie. It just came up. I don't know, it was Netflix or Hulu or something. I don't know. I saw it last night. It's up. It's in one of the streaming services. Watch The Big Short. It'll be very interesting. It'll explain the great how complex it was, and how it had nothing to do with buyers, sellers, real estate agents. No, it was the mortgage industry. It was investors. It absolutely artificially inflated the market. It's entirely different than now. Why? Because of the trillions of dollars in equity that people have in their homes that will cushion any hardships. If they can't sell it, they take it off the market. Period. They've got enough flexibility. If they can't afford it, they will price it at a point where they can sell it. And when I say they can't sell it, it means that people can't get the price that they think that they should get. So they take it off the market. Every house sells. Every house is saleable. Every house is saleable. If you really need to sell, you price at a point where you attract interest, take the equity out, and you buy another, or you go into a rental, or you travel, or whatever you want to do. That wasn't the case during the Great Financial Crisis. It was not the case. People did not have the equity to do that. And that's what got people in trouble. That's why people went into foreclosure, because they financed the heck out of their homes. Not only that, they took money out. Even every little equity they had, they pulled it out and bought boats and cars and all kinds of crazy crap, and I'm not judging if you did it, because, trust me, we all made choices. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm a real estate agent. I talked to my husband at the time. I talked him into buying a condo up in New Hampshire in ski country. Why? It was a lapse. It was a bad decision. Learn from my mistakes. I'm not, no one's immune. Yes, Charles, the housing market will improve when pricing corrections reach the levels people can afford to buy them. That's all there's to it. Yep. And that will happen. Affordability is how much, what is affordability? That means it's a level of income coming into your household. That's going to determine what you can afford, is how much income. And again, it has to do with the income growing faster than home prices. You don't need home prices to plummet. As a matter of fact, that would be detrimental to the recovery of the housing market. It would make things that much harder. It would have some consequences. I mean, you start talking about, housing market crashes. I mean, let's put it this way. For those folks that are like housing market gurus, they think that that's the answer and that's the thing that's going to happen and all the things. Let me ask you a question. That house that sold for $500,000, housing market crashes. Now they sell it for $350,000. How many people are going to come out of the woodwork to buy that at $350,000? Because there's always people that still have money. There's always people that still can make the payments, and it's just a matter of what the price is. Now you've got not one, not two, 10 or 20 buyers making an offer on that same property. This is going to be pandemic all over again. And what happened during the pandemic? $350,000, $375,000, $400,000. The crash will not be the answer. It'll be the catalyst for setting us back even further. And there's always going to be people. They've been talking about crash for years. Now the hot button is foreclosures, talking about foreclosures going through the roof. Foreclosures are up. Yeah, because they were at an all-time low. And they're still below where the average is for foreclosures in any given housing market. Yeah, they're going up because the market's normalizing. Then the market is adjusting itself without a crash. It will adjust itself. It is. It's happening real time. It's just not at the pace that we want it to. And that's what makes people uncomfortable. And that's what makes people nervous, is it's not moving fast enough where we want. And in this society, in this day and age where, Burger King started it, you guys remember back in the 80s, you have it your way. That's the way everything is. I want this house and I want it this price, and I'm not willing to wait. This is why car leasing went through the roof. Why? Because it was cheaper. Instead of waiting, saving, or buying used, back in the day, bought a used car. You couldn't afford to buy new, you bought used. Patience. Jose says that with the new Fed leadership in place, expectations are high for a rate cut. When they implement it, and by how much? You know what? I'm not even going to speculate on what or when they do. I will tell you that, yes, it will impact, things like credit card rates and, things of that nature. It's not going to directly impact mortgage rates. It's not going to impact what we're doing, in the housing market. That is going to come from Treasury the T-bills and the investor activity. So it'll be interesting to see. I've been hearing the lines. I've been hearing the administration talk about, we're going to get prices down, or we're going to make it more affordable by lowering the rates. Lowering the rates could have, again, catastrophic effects on the housing market, because it'll open up more buyers than the market can handle. It'll create uncontrollable demand. This is the same. We've been through this story. Agent Dawkins is also the movie 99 Homes. You're talking about, I know which movie you're talking about. That's the one with, what's the name of that guy? He was one of the Spider-Man movies. He was in, I know who you're talking about. He's English. The name will come to me. That was a good movie. That was a real heartbreaking movie. Hit home because I represented banks for a couple years. Prior to pandemic, I represented banks in that, my experience was not anywhere near close to what the movie portrayed, for sure. But I would be the person they would call once a foreclosure process is finalized and it goes to auction and the bank takes possession. They would call me, and I'd be the one to have to to go to the property, see if people are still living there, serve call the sheriff, have the sheriff be there. I've had a couple of situations where I've had to, I tell the bank is, puts things in motion. But I have to meet the sheriff at the property and it was black moving trucks. It was heartbreaking and scary at times when the black moving trucks pulled up to the property, because there is no turning back. When they pull up to your front door and the property is foreclosed on and notices have been served and all the things, and people are just like, they're sitting in there, they're not budging. The sheriff shows up. If they don't leave the property, they get arrested. All their stuff goes into storage, and they have to hold it legally. I think it was 90 days, something of that nature. Like, they can't just take their stuff. They give a window of time for you to retrieve it, but it was never a good situation. Often sad, sometimes scary, and it just, that was when sometimes I walk into a house and all the cement was poured down the toilet, copper pipes ripped out, sell it, all the things. Crazy. All right, guys, I'm about to close up shop here. On the unfortunate collector says the foreclosures in my area are not discounted in the least. Glad. Thank you for posting that, because that's the thing. People think they're going to, and I have this conversation all the time, especially first-time home buyers looking to get their foot in the door and trying to be looking at all options. Buying a foreclosure, and again, a foreclosure is something that, it is already, the process is done. The bank has taken possession. They are not discounting these houses. They're a for-profit company. They're looking to make as much money. It doesn't matter how much the note is. If you have a $500,000 house, maybe the note was $300,000. And I've seen this time and time again where people, are just embarrassed or ignorant to the system, or they put their head in the sand and say it's not going to happen to me. And the next thing you know, instead of selling the property and taking the proceeds and trying to strategically get themselves out of the situation, they ignore it. And the next thing you know, the bank's foreclosed. And they go through the process, all the things. And when the bank has someone like me walk through the property and assess the condition, I do a fair market analysis, a fair market value. They review it and say, yes, we agree that that's fair market value based on the condition. And oftentimes they list it for higher. There's no deals. Side note on that, when you're looking at articles and data that's coming out, and I think we're going to see more of that kind of discussion in the coming months about foreclosures on the rise and all the things. When someone is late, 30 days late, the banks have the opportunity. They're entitled to start the foreclosure process. Those are called foreclosure starts. Just because a foreclosure process start does not mean they get foreclosed on. Why? Because oftentimes the homeowners can come up with money and stop the process. They can negotiate with the bank that they have their mortgage through to see if they can, do a refinance or a readjustment or whatever, to try to save their home. It's not done. It's not an actual foreclosure until they have the notice, and then it's a whole legal process. They have to advertise it, 3 times in a public publication to let other people know so that people can come forward, and state claim and all the things. It's a whole process. Then the auction gets scheduled. And if no one buys it at auction, then the bank takes over. That process could be anywhere from 90 days to 2 years. It really depends. So when you're looking at those articles, if foreclosure on the rise, make sure you know what you're looking at. Are they actually closed bank-owned REO properties, real estate-owned properties where the banks are owning them? Or are they just people that are defaulting on their mortgage but still own the property? When you default, until the point where the bank takes over, the homeowner owns that property. It doesn't matter if they're 30 days, 60 days, the homeowner's still in charge. Just because you see it in the paper, scheduled for auction, the homeowner still owns the property, period. Super clear, because you may have a lot of folks that get to that brink and then are able to get themselves out, so it never becomes a foreclosure. But the paper on, the data, the data shows that no, it's not the actual data you need to be looking at. I got a lot of information on this, on the foreclosures. Yes, all the comments. Angie, I'm not surprised that yours is foreclosure with you being so handy. Your husband being, I know all about you. I've never met you. I know your husband's in the trades and you like to do woodworking and all this stuff. I love you guys coming in the chat, and I love the community that we've got going on here. I appreciate it. La 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 la. You never want to hear me sing. I was before I got into real estate, I was in a band, dropped out of college, thought I was going to be a rock star. We can see how that worked out. I was a piano player, and we did like blues rock music and stuff. I did not have a microphone. And that was by design. I sing in the shower, and that is about it. Guys, thanks for all these questions. Oh, the poll. I don't want to forget the poll. All right, you guys, the poll. Before we forget, 105 votes. Does the warning of rising rates, mortgage rates, or falling prices impact your decision to make a move this year? We've got 10% said yes, I'm adjusting my plan. 18% said maybe, I'm waiting to see. 20% said not sure what to do, but 52%, more than half of you said, no, my plan hasn't changed. And you know what? That is exactly what I'm talking about. That kind of comes full circle more to the beginning, where buyers and sellers will make decisions based on their own personal economy, period. Their own personal household and what's happening in their space. Take an inventory of where you are. If you want to know whether it's a good time to buy or sell right now, a month from now, you've got to do an inventory of your own personal situation. Look at all the facets that affect you owning a home or selling a home. And then from that, decide, is this the right decision for me? Not only financially, but other reasons. And the poll kind of speaks for itself, that, you know what, if you really need to sell, it is the thing that is, driving you, whatever that reason is, the market is irrelevant. The market has always been irrelevant, is why the market has never stopped. 365 days a year, every day of every year for for as long as record keeping has been, because that's what drives. And the markets have seen some serious swings and serious obstacles. Even the crash. The people who bought and sold changed, but it didn't stop. 30 years, I haven't stopped working. I mean, yeah, there's been pauses and shifts and okay, now I'm going to help these, more during the crash, it was more helping people that needed to get out from underneath their house, short sales and whatnot. But there were always still people moving. There's always a need. So, on that note, guys, I'm gonna bid you adieu. Grab some dinner and all the things. It's 8:00 Eastern time here. So, I really appreciate you hanging out with you, joining me in this conversation, all the things. And as I mentioned earlier, and I always close my live stream with going out into the world, all the things, and interacting with folks. Coming across comments, whether it be on social media or whatnot. Be curious, not judgmental. Be curious. Ask questions. Ask questions. Find out why people say the things they do. It's easy to pass judgment when you don't have all the information. It's easy. Like, why does Jen have purple hair? You could easily put me in one box or another, but if you ask me the question, I would say, it's a menopause thing. I just decided the day before to go to a hairdresser one day, and purple's my favorite color, and I'm in my mid-50s. I'm the heck with it. I'm going to do what makes me happy. But you don't know that until you ask. Be curious, not judgmental. Guys, love y'all. I'll see you guys next week. Same time, same bat channel, Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. And we'll talk more about what the heck's going on in the housing market. Never a dull moment. Be good, be safe out there, and have a wonderful rest of the week. Take care. Ciao.